Hello and welcome to HGC North America, where the best of North America are still battling out to claim the title for their own. You know, we had the old guards taking on the newest generation of North American players this weekend, and mainly today. It's going to be exciting to see it unfold. I am Dreadnought. With me, as always, is J-How. J-How, after some of the games we got out of you, mixed with what we got going on here today, I mean, there was unique strategies out of the European play, and again, that kind of hype we have with today with that old versus new players. What are your thoughts?
I mean, this is the second time we've seen from Europe the solo Abathur as the pseudo healer for their team, and the Samuro worked out for Method before we got that. It wrapped up the last series. And you know, one of the fun things that we always hear from a lot of teams is when they scrim against Gale Force, they're like, look, they always practice some of the craziest stuff, some of the most unpredictable stuff, so maybe we'll get a little bit of that flavor today.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to see kind of what we end up getting out of that. But first, we got to take a minute and, you know, look at where North America has found themselves so far as we take a look at the standings here for North America. And, you know, taking a minute to look at where things have unfolded. Tempo Storm sitting at one of those teams that is going to show themselves today up against that old guard I was referring to with Simplicity, sitting there at the 6th slot. But the top 4 slots so far, J-How, have been unscathed since what we saw results-wise post, you know, Western Clash.
Yeah, you know, we see Team Freedom and they kind of mix in between there. Obviously, I think if Team 12 picks up that victory today, they have a better win-loss rate, so they'll move up to that spot. But Team 12, we heard from them last week, they expect to be near the top, and they've been evolving, trying to develop a kind of a long-term strategy. It's coming together, but they are going up against a Gale Force team who picked up a victory yesterday. So I think things like that could maybe shift there. And, you know, obviously the win yesterday for Gale Force was a big win because it brings them further up and further away from the Crucible spots.
Yeah, and so, you know, we're going to kind of take a closer look at the schedule that we have here for today with those series that you were talking about, because there is a lot on the line. Again, unique strategies coming out from Europe as we saw Tricked Esports taking on Fnatic, but mainly that between Zealots and Method. Not a 3-0 or not a 3-0 I expected, I guess, at first glance, especially from yesterday's stance. But end of the day, Tempo Storm taking on Simplicity. But first is Gale Force Esports and Team 12. This one is a doozy, J-How. I feel like there's a lot of different ways to kind of start this out, but the first thing I got to highlight, or at least for me that I want to see in the series, is confidence and control. And I know we saw a little bits and pieces of that from Gale Force, but on the other side, Team 12, they have seemed, you know, post-Western Clash, they're like, yeah, nobody but Tempo Storm has seemed to be the focus for them from beginning to end. It's just they're the only team that's going to threaten us. And it's important to, you know, kind of back up that here. Gale Force is a perfect team in terms of the scaling and placing that they're at standings to come out and just look good.
I 100% agree with you on the fact that you can also look towards how that works, right? And a lot of it does come around to the fact that Justin on the front line and, oh, by the way, his best friend on the support role, a lot of that, that's the rock star like style that they have to just solidify those two roles and kind of allow people to work. We've seen a little bit of a change up with Goku. We've seen Cure settle into his role, no more of that switching around. So I feel that gives them better continuity when they draft, when they try and play around that. So I think for your point, I think the control is a big factor for them, and this would be a good spot for them today to continue that.
Good kind of a benchmark to be able to set there. And also, you know, consistency is something that we were talking about for Team 12, but again, is something that we've got to be looking at on the table for Gale Force Esports. But we checked in with Mike Udall and Justin, the captains of these roster, beforehand to hear their thoughts on matchup. So let's see what they had to say.
Going back pretty far, I used to be on TNC. We used to be pretty strong rivals with Gale Force, so it feels kind of good, I guess, to have sort of stepped past that and don't really consider ourselves to be huge rivals anymore, just because we've been consistently beating them instead of the other way around. They're going through some weird adjustments with the drafting and shot calling, I think, kind of like we were a little while ago. So I think right now they're kind of unstable. I think the biggest worry from Gale Force right now would be in the draft. Akaface has been very vocal in the past about how Cheese can win championships. So as long as we don't get cheesed, I think we should be fine. We can't completely underestimate them, but I think it should be a pretty easy 3-0.
So going into our Team 12 match, they looked really dominant over their win over Freedom. That being said, they do have a double header versus us. So they play us, and then after us, they'll play Heroes Hearth Esports. So maybe they'll be looking to, you know, hold some punches, trying to save some strategies for that Heroes Hearth match, and that could be something they really exploit. I think Team 12 is a really solid team, but I think if they try and, you know, hold their punches, I think they could be in for a surprise. Vikings, baby.
Confidence on one side and surprise Vikings on the other here for Gale Force Esports versus Team 12. And, you know, I wouldn't put it past Gale Force to maybe get some kind of cheese, but at the same time, they have seemed a bit more, you know, on the we're going to not play the kind of, you know, 5 flexes. We aren't going to play the kind of more cheese, our own play style. You know, it's kind of hard. They border cheese here and there, depending on the moments you look at their kind of past and their history there. So I feel like they've normalized a bit here, and I don't think we'll get the Vikings kind of breaking out, but you also on the other side still see that same level of confidence from Justin, even being willing to say, you know, maybe feeling like this should be a 3-0 in their favor.
It should, I think, for a lot of reasons, just because it seems when you talked about, we've seen kind of Gale Force have a lot of turnover in their roster, and they haven't had the stability because every time they get new players, they continue to try and do something different, whether it's the big-time global strategies, whether it's the 5 flexes from about a year ago this time. It seems like they're constantly evolving. But I feel like now, you know, once Michael Udall kind of came back from everything, he said, look, some of the pressure's off. I don't have to worry about as much anymore. But I think it also kind of eases the tension for this roster as you're not expecting too much from everybody to do all the different things. And by solidifying, I think the roles in particular, it gives them a little bit of an easier path to success. But again, with Team 12 on the other side, because they've had that continuity that I was talking about, but then they had a few role swaps in the early part of the year. I think now you kind of see both teams coming together as they're still developing and coming into their own. So it is an interesting clash when you look at it that way, the way that these teams are developing within themselves and how they can develop in the competitive scene.
Yeah, I completely agree, especially on the side of Team 12, to being able to see the results. Finally, it feels like from those kind of major work that they have put in coming to light here at the HGC. But we got to figure out where we're going for Battleground number 1 between these teams. What do we see unfold? Gale Force Esports going to take away BOE, Cursed Hollow Band out for Team 12, and Dragonshire will be the first map here for Gale Force Esports. Everybody's sticking to a bit of what expected, especially since Gale Force Esports has been willing to move into that Cursed Hollow recently. I'm not surprised to see Team 12 stick to their normal band, try and take that away, not want to deal with that. Dragonshire, though, I feel like, you know, if anything, I want to be like Gale Force is going to be a big strength and moment for them. That's their map choice, but Team 12 individually is, you know, I mean, they're all playmakers, right? And it's a map where individual decision-making is really going to kind of make a standout moment and kind of have that impact on the map. So I'm still a bit more reserved than I normally would for being their map selection.
Well, the biggest part for me is the map bans in particular, BOE being the most dominant battleground for Team 12. Good to see somebody taking that away. Sometimes we'll just kind of say, look, Brax is full sky up, but they're like, look, we don't want to face you here. But, you know, to your point of having the individual playmakers, you know, I think a lot of it, you know, I was really digging into some of the map stats in terms of drafts and things like that. So the draft for me and the direction that some of these teams go, they have a very common thread with some of the heroes that they like to pick. And I think that on this battleground in particular, you might want to stay away from some of those common picks. And that's something that we can highlight if it does come up.
Talking about, you know, some of the picks, one of the heroes that out of all of games yesterday we didn't get to see much of, but we've still seen bits and pieces of him here and there, is the flame that has been put out known as Blaze. Might be a map that we still see him kind of come to light because the laning phase is so very relevant. Other than that, we're going to find maybe what the new interpretation of the meta is here for Team 12. We did see Gale Force Esports yesterday comfortable with the first pick Maiev, making it look good in games 1 and 2. I mean, not just good. They had a shutout game and a absolutely dominant one in the second.
Well, I think the thing that for Team 12, when we looked at the previous week, is there was some indecision when we looked at the clash in particular because Goku was on Maiev and Cure was flexing over, and that's something that they acknowledged and fixed after they came back from the clash. Now you've got Cure on the Maiev, allowing Dansky to continue to do some of the phenomenal things that he does in terms of his play. Still the highest kill participation from that ranged role, still one of the best overall statistically and a big part of Team 12's success. So if they don't ban out Maiev, look for them to pick that up now that Cure has settled into that role. And you talked about individual performances, Dredd. This is one where there's a strong focus on that solo laner. So allowing Goku to do what he does best while allowing Cure to kind of flex around.
Yeah, and Goku, I mean, he really made a name for himself on that kind of off-lane, though that play style and that, you know, much like I feel like Wubby has done for, you know, the European region and kind of being that he was the go-to off-lane and the impact that that role has diluted. He is still, you know, making the flashy plays for Team 12. Gale Force Esports, having to kind of choose between if they still want to go with the traditional Medivh route with Dansky on the other side. I'm going to say probably Medivh. But if they do not ban out the Medivh, I would assume it to be a Maiev.
Now this is an interesting part because this is the Maiev nerfs that we were waiting for, and we saw different rank in terms of priority from certain teams, especially Europe has kind of had this big aversion towards it. Gale Force yesterday did not, picked up 2 quick victories. Team 12, they're going to lock that in, so that shows a little bit of what they want to accomplish. And for me, it's going to be about where do we see Dansky on his hero, because you can get the displacement, but do you have the follow-up damage? Is it going to come from potentially a Garage, some type of tank setup, some type of support setup, or will you have that big killer on the backside, something like a Hanzo, something like a Greymane to try and finish off what Cure can set up?
Hanzo has been a hero that has dropped pretty significantly when it comes to the priority. I guess that's unfair. The nerfs came in, he dropped to almost not played. Western Eastern Clash happened, we said, hey, we remember Hanzo. And then now it's gotten to the point where he isn't overly prioritized, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see him kind of bump up here and there. He really, at least for North American level, I feel like he's sitting a little bit below maybe where he can belong in some of these drafts, especially on maps where you can control. I mean, it's just so many diverse builds, especially with that Garage now picked up on the other side, having the opportunity to go with the Shred at that level 7. The synergy with the level 1, oh so nice.
My favorite part about Hanzo, and this is something I was talking to you a little bit about before, and it's been compounded the more data we get, the more accurate things can become. Hanzo's win rate on something like Infernal Shrines is about 40%, okay? When you look at Battlefield of Eternity, it's 79.5. That was coming into this weekend. And then on every other map, it's like 60 or higher. It's a ridiculous number. So you take Infernal Shrines, I think it was something like 41 games out of 205 played, 220 played coming into this weekend. So almost a fifth of the games that he's played was on Infernal Shrines. Win rate of 40%. That means his win rate on every other battleground is astronomically high. And so to your point of, do we get more Hanzo priority? I'm surprised that we don't, but for an execution style, if you're going to get that displacement, Stukov, follow up on that, Jaina the same.
Yeah, that's one of those situations where, you know, it's a Team 12, if you want to kind of double down on the offense here with the laning situation, I think it's pretty understandable. It's not like Gale Force has to be too concerned. Garrosh, pretty threatening within the 4, doesn't provide too much in the wave clear, but they've got the Junkrat to be able to make up for that, unless for some reason they were concerned about sending Junkrat to a solo, which that isn't so common normal practice in North America, but it very much is something we've seen in other parts of the world.
Well, we see the Malthael. Obviously, the percentage-based damage. When you study Team 12, again, Cure has moved over to the Maiev role. Goku is more than capable of playing it, but with Dragonshire, I think that you can look more towards the front line. The way that they're doing now is take away some of the biggest threats, because you're going to be looking at the melee and the tank. So if they're going to do this, I like the fact that Gale Force, they've done their homework. They know what works well against Garrosh, and they know that exactly what Team 12 needs. So I'm okay with that. Obviously, Blaze still being open. I wonder if that's going to be a Gale Force pick, or whether it'll go the other way.
I'm afraid to say it, man. At this point, you know, again, that kind of the ever-burning torch that is Blaze has been put out for me for a small moment. Not because I don't think he's got the value, but just purely based on he has seen so little relevance and impact on these drafts. So with that in mind, support would be the immediate focus, or, you know, kind of presumed focus, a Malfurion ban here for the side of Team 12. If they don't end up committing to that, you would think they would be worried about a laning mismatch on the top half that they would try and take away from Gale Force. Deciding against it, going to stick with that standard Malfurion takeaway.
You know, the fact that they have the Junkrat Wave Clear, I wonder if they'd be willing to go down the Tracer route, even despite not having the Malfurion. You know, we kind of saw it yesterday paired with the Stukov as well. Malfurion's there, so it's hard to get, I guess, more value out of other supports. You know, it's a little bit different trying to heal the Tracer that is in constant need of some type of support. And, you know, Junkrat kind of gives you, okay, we've got Wave Clear, you can roam. I think with the Malfurion being taken off, Gale Force is going to have to look other directions, but I think it's still something to consider in their drafts.
Now that we've seen Stukov and Malfurion taken away, another thing we got to ask ourselves is Jaina, or not Jaina, but Lili into a Jaina. Is that even an option? Is that something we even consider? Normally, I'd say under the circumstances, Rhaegar stands out as that kind of go-to, or the Uther. And it's going to be the case there, especially with the Dahak. I was going to say it depends on what that offlaner is going to be in, as long as it has an HP big enough. If Junkrat's going to be that offlaner, it's not worth the Rhaegar commitment. Maybe something more like the Lucio or Kharazim. They're going to go with the Dahaka, though. That does, honestly, Gale Force's draft right now, catering to the map sense, it's very good. It just doesn't have too much synergy within its 1-4. Mainly the 4-man is where my concern lies, because then if you look at Team 12's camp, we've already talked about the aggression, kill potential within the 4-man. It has been like, take whatever offlaner you want, as long as we can provide way too much dominance within the 4, it's going to make up for it. That comp is not as risky of a drafting strategy on the side of Gale Force as it, for Team 12 as it used to be because of the ammo removal. It just feels like Gale Force is playing to a map when that is a bit, again, kind of out of meta, and rightly so.
I'm low-key wondering if we might get a Stitches here. I don't really like Stitches on this battleground. If not, maybe just a standard ETC to deal with that front line. ETC actually has one of the better win rates against Garage, but Johanna, the safe pickup, gives you that wave clear, gives you a little bit of protection. You know, obviously, Leoric being the pickup, I think, might be a little bit of a surprise over the Blaze, but that just kind of shows the mentality here that North America has towards that solo lane and how much Blaze seems to have fallen off.
Yeah, he's just nowhere to be found. Why, man.
I guess if you get flipped, you just Wraith walk out, so maybe a little bit of just, like, we'll just be extra cautious.
And, I mean, absolutely dominates when it comes to wave clear. Control over double shrines. Like, if you ever want to get top shrine, make the cycle back to mid for a backdoor early DK, Leo is a bit outstanding. I think that's probably a bit more of it, is just, hey, who can we have that isn't too big of a threat into the Garrosh? Have the Johanna. Pretty good synergy for the Johanna. It's something I'll always bring up whenever you're going to commit to the Johanna. If you need something to make sure you have follow-up. Maev with the tether opportunities, Warden's Cage, Stukov, Jaina, every single one of those, even Entombed to a certain extent.
Pull him back into the lurking arm.
Yeah.
I like where you're going with this. I like where you're going.
And that is what is needed if you're going to commit to that Johanna. So I really like that, kind of pick up for Team 12, whereas normally when I see that first three picks committed to kill potential, and then your Warriors to Johanna, you kind of go, is this okay? Is this worth the commitment? But all three of them working well enough with it that I really feel, leaning towards the side of Team 12 here through this draft.
Outside of sheer displacement, we see the Chromie pick up there at the end. Outside of sheer displacement between the Garrosh, between the Junkrat, so you're looking at getting the toss over, potentially a concussion mine to really displace somebody. But when you look at Johanna and you look at Leoric, the two most likely targets being on the melee, they both have ways to become unstoppable and get back to safety. And I wonder, because Junkrat, again, I kind of touched on this yesterday, he's not necessarily like, oh, well, somebody's in front of me, I can burst this hero down. It's more like, all right, I can land some grenades. Chromie, the same thing. Full skill shots, right? It's kind of weird because, like, do you categorize Junkrat more of a mage style play or more of an auto attack style play? It's kind of weird with those grenades, but I feel like the amount of chaos they create otherwise, I feel like it's hard to execute on this battleground in particular. You can play safe in the early game, but when you get into these raw team fights once forts are down, I feel like landing those skill shots and the chaos they create doesn't have the same value late game. So I don't know how I feel about the style.
Yeah, I can agree with you there. I can see how that can kind of be a bit offsetting and a little bit more difficult to get that support. The one thing for me when, looking towards Gale Force Esports that I do have the highlight of, like, they could be really dominant is, I mean, they can run a 1-1-1 with a two-man gang squad and get away with it. They have three phenomenal laners, Junkrat holding the mid, Chromie delaying on bottom, Dahaka not feeding on top. That's all you need in those two lanes. And the other two can do whatever they like. It's just that those two, number one, have to be able to sustain to that kill potential within the 4-man of Team 12, which is outstanding. And then the other thing that they have in that type of situation to be able to deal with that is going to be, I mean, really beyond that point is just going to be trying to get a kill. But again, I don't think you're going to get those kind of ganks on Dragonshire with that 1-1-3. So it's a unique laning situation from beginning to end here on the side of Gale Force. Team 12, confident before the series started. I feel like they've got to be confident after that draft too.
When you go into Maev, you expect Maev to make plays, and I think that the confidence is there, even if you don't make those plays, because you do have the wave clear with Jaina, who can rotate between if you need it. Although, if you go back in recent history, I think it was when Team 12 might have gone against Tempo Storm, they had a similar composition, and like they would kind of split, so going between mid to bot lane, they kind of went into that triangle area, and Tempo would just like pounce on them, and they got so far behind early game that the next time—
it was with Hanzo, right?
Ooh, it was something along those lines, but the next time they played, they took the long way around to make sure that they didn't get caught in that gank situation. So I think that the early game will probably see them play safe, but it will rely on Maev to make plays when they do want to be aggressive, and even if they don't need to be aggressive, they still have good wave clear, good all-around, I guess, control over those bottom two lanes. So I'm curious how aggressive they'll choose to be, because it's harder with a Johanna, but with the Maiev there, obviously eases it a little bit.
Yeah, and that strategy, that playstyle that Tempo would do with that kind of cutting off in the chokes was huge whenever Hanzo was in the meta. They would all the time be one of the best at going like, well, if you're just going to kind of take this rotation, they'd have the offensive one in the triangle and then go, you have to go through Giants. Here's a scattering arrow. There's a dismount. That adds an extra, 2 seconds to the rotation, crippling them from beginning to end. And that, is why Tempo Storm probably sitting at the top of the ladder. Controlling that Bermuda Triangle is what absolutely Team 12 is going to be looking to do in this game. A lot of it is, again, because their wave clear is so good and the kill potential there. But if Gale Force gets a window, I don't know. I can see that wave clear kind of situation for them with that, the Rhaegar, Dahaka, Junkrat, and the Chromie, that control over those lanes being too oppressive. We are done waiting here, ladies and gentlemen. We have game number 1 ready for you. Let's get it started here. Dragonshire between Gale Force Esports and Team 12.
Kicking it off right as we've got Gale Force on the left here, as that's going to be Biggie on the Chromie. Michael Udall will be on Junkrat, B-Kid on Dahaka, Fury, of course, on Garrosh, and Akaface going to be on Rhaegar.
And here in red is going to be Team 12, where we have Dansky playing the Jaina. Next up is Cure. Cure on that Maiev. Justing is going to be playing the Johanna. We got Goku repping that Leo, and Buds, last on support, going to be playing Stukov.
You know what my favorite part about Garrosh is in the early game?
What is your favorite part about playing Garrosh in the early game, Jay?
Just the fact that, you dare somebody to invade your camps. Like, come here, just invade this siege camp, because I'm tossing you over to my fort. That is one of the, I guess, small little, all right, no other hero can really do something along those lines. There's Cure getting a 2-man tether, but Jaina got picked up with a top dread. Yeah,
that was a nice flip over from Fury, putting Jaina in the turret range, and that's enough for first blood over to Gale Force. If Gale Force is able to keep that kind of momentum and get those kind of kills, that takes away a lot of the compositional strengths that Team 12 has with this type of draft. That is really going to be, I know it's game-breaking at this point in time, but if they can keep up that kind of momentum and at least, buying those opportunities where you have 15 seconds without a member for Team 12, they can abuse that, again, unique laning situation they've developed with this Junkrat Chromie and become really, really oppressive, especially to the bottom half of the map. But if you see that happen the other way around, suddenly this game might get out of hand. Team 12, with their draft, when they get 1 kill, they're going to be looking for a second soon after.
Dread, I'm a little curious, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes there's a question of, why do you fight 5v5 mid at the beginning of the game? But I gotta understand your perspective from former pro perspective. You're the favored team. You come in, you lose 1 person in that first skirmish. Does that affect you at all?
No, not even in the least bit.
I just wonder if there's a psychological aspect, come on, man, we shouldn't die here.
I mean, if you, I will say there's a certain element of it. So it depends. If you truly are that confident, you just go, not a big deal. If you are a team that should be performing well,
so
and
pretending to be confident?
Yeah, and aren't performing that well, and you're like, guys, we have this bar and expectation, and that can kind of get to you. The idea of what people are expecting from your squad, very much so. I think it can get to you there because you go, okay, this kind of stuff can't happen, and then that leads to baby tilt on baby tilt, and then you end up with an actual, full-on baby rage at the end of the day.
A team like Team 12, I don't expect it to be too bad there. That's one of the reasons why you can pick a Chromie, is because whenever you see that lurking arm down, you have a stationary target in Stukov. You can see Biggie laying in those shots. Got 7 stacks on his sands there, going those out throughout the game. We see, this Jaina build. Again, we've seen it from Jay Shrite. Goku, he's going to get away. But getting the extra slow at level 1, then Arcane Intellect to make sure that you get mana back when you auto-attack targets that are already chilled. It's one way to make sure you don't deplete yourself of mana. So obviously, we see the change up in build here in North America.
Puts you in a position to, get as many autos as you possibly can. That mana is, really crucial. To be honest with you, other than after the, kind of rework, if you will, towards the Jaina, that was a lot of the biggest thing that everybody was so thankful is to having that opportunity to get some mana back at level 4, not as dependent as she once was. Laning situation here with the pressure developed by Team 12 on the bottom half of the map. It's going to be slowing the pace of Gale Force, but Gale Force's comp is built for this. I think the best way, if I was to describe Gale Force's comp, is good wave clear and anti-siege. They aren't overly synergistic. They aren't great team fighters. They aren't bad heroes by any means. But their biggest thing is they just go, hey, if any of us sit on the other side of this wall, we're some of the best at dealing with these minions, dealing with your heroes. Garrosh with the flip over the wall. Dahaka's probably one of the worst, but he's a good laner. Rhaegar probably one of the best supports when it comes to wave clear. And then Chromie is literally one of the reasons she was brought into the meta, right? And Junkrat, it's kind of just a nice convenience there. So it's just stopping those sieges, not worrying about it. And that's why I said there's so much on Team 12 to get kills in this game. Fury is going to go ahead and flip over Cure, forcing out the vault. Another kill here for Gale Force Esports, and Mikey Dahl even able to make the rotation down thanks to that wave clear advantage over the JoJo.
Fury making plays, continuing the trend from yesterday. I mean, again, continuing to show why he's been one of the long-standing top tanks in the world for quite some time. We see both shrines being channeled here. Justine gets the blind in, but Fury's getting the toss away. I don't think Justine's going to make it. That's going to be Dragon Knight #1 picked up here for Gale Force. A little bit of early game control with these 2 kills, Dread.
Yeah, now with that kind of same advantage, same anti-siege conversation that I've been bringing up for the first stages of this, it gets extremely lopsided into their favor if they end up getting enough damage onto these structures over this first Dragon Knight. So opening up the map, especially front walls, is going to be devastating towards Team 12 if Gale Force can make that happen.
Fury already completed his groundbreaker.
That's actually gross. That makes me feel really gross on the inside. I just played Garrosh last night and had not near the same experience, so Fury, please teach me, Senpai.
You can see entire wall being taken out down here in the bottom, giving a slight experience advantage. There was a bit of a skirmish going on up top. Fury continuing to land. Drag's going to land. I don't think he's going to be long for this world. Justine's going down. Team 12 off to a slow start today, Drag.
Yeah, definitely not the kind of pack and punch opener that you would expect from Team 12 normally. And, you know, Gale Force, they start out strong. They have always started out strong, at least at part #2 so far. Every beginning of the series come in with a game plan until it begins to start falling apart, and then it seems to fall apart very, very quickly. So the question is, does it continue all the way through game #1? Hold up, here with a 2-man tether. Fury's going to pick up the camps, going to be slowed down. Jaina's going to lock. Oh, not actually get enough damage on that Blizzard. And the time trap's enough. BK came in with that brush talk, trying to get the damage. Temporal loop not needed to get the kill. Maev ends up dropping. Drag. Ooh, maybe not the concussion mine Mikey Dahl was looking for there. Gonna send Goku into a safe place.
This dominance from Gale Force, very reminiscent of their last 2 series. Once against Heroes Hearth, and we saw them yesterday against No Tomorrow. They start off strong, as you were alluding to a moment ago. As you said, can they keep up the trend? You know, when we look at Team 12 in the series that they've played, in their 8 series that they've played, they've only lost 2 of their first games in their series. So they're a team that traditionally wins out in the early part of their series. So obviously a strong team overall. That is something to note, that they are a very strong team in the early part of the series.
Nice taunt, into that concussion mine. Drain Hope's going to be thrown onto Fury, but Goku not getting anywhere here, as that is toss #2. Going to send him to the Afterworld. Afterlife, Afterworld. Is it an Afterworld if you always go into Ghost form? I think it's just going to the other realm. I don't know.
The other realm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a realm that Fury is sending people. I think the entirety of Team 12 has now visited that realm. Thanks to Fury.
Yeah, thanks to Fury.
Fury, we're no longer just going to call him Fury. We're just going to call him the Reaper.
Needs to be a mouth, though, man.
Ooh.
8 seconds out from Dragon Knight phase #2. Camp advantage for Team 12 on the top half of the map, whereas Gale Force has their pressure towards the bottom. Advantageous for Gale Force, considering they can pick up this, get top, and then have that global come down. But here comes the Force. Team 12 needs to win this fight. They need to be able to get the Force. There it goes in 2-1. Fury seems to be the focus for now. Big Impact trying to get the kite out. Cure not pulling the Warden's cage yet. Riptire goes in, knocking back all the members of Team 12. Combo over the wall from Chromie, not going to connect.
Dansky is still holding onto that Ring of Frost. They haven't been able to get any combos. Cure is in very deep. The ring goes down. Cure going to get knocked up. He's going to go down. You can see the savior there as Michael Udall disappears. Temporal loop. He's going to drop bombs onto Justin, but Goku in assault of Biggie as the fight rages on here.
Yo, Biggie over that wall, though, doing so much work kiting around, using those time tracks. He straight out outplayed the hell out of Goku there in that 1v1. That was well done. Dansky, though, able to get the pick off there. Last kill onto Mikey Dahl on that Junkrat. Makes his way out of there. A bit of a quarrel here between these two teams, but Team 12 claiming the first kill for themselves there when it's all said and done.
You know, it's crazy to think that we see the 6-to-1 kill advantage in that early Dragonite, but you look at the experience, and it's pretty neutral. And that's Team 12 staying in the game, and they haven't really lost much in the way of structures. That bottom fort's still standing about halfway. Cure, he's going to go ahead, blink on out. But the amount of control that Team 12 has managed in that top lane, you actually just saw a quick look at it as Johanna was there, but that is strictly due to the strength of Goku in that top lane on Leoric.
Yeah, doing a great job up there. Justin now with the 1v1 and a B-Kid. That is going to be kind of that, you know, what we talk about the wet noodles, slapping each other up there in the top lane for a little bit. It's all about just controlling that shrine in case Leoric was able to get a backdoor selection on mid. Not going to be the case. It's Big Impact's throwing out that damage once again onto Goku. I'm not kidding, that last bottom fight, there was so much done by Big Impact over that wall, trying to kite around, keeping himself alive. The whole time was threatening back Team 12. I feel like without, you know, his, you know, I'm going to say it's a big of Biggie Small situation and his big but little impact being on that Chromie. Oxymoronic was the word I was looking for.
You know, we've seen a little bit of a change-up in builds for Garrosh throughout this weekend, and, you know, a lot of teams playing it differently. You see the accuracy that Fury has had on his Groundbreaker, going the level 13 talent of defensive measures, making sure you get that shield whenever you land the end of that. And it's something a lot of people, we see a lot of double up previously to double your armor with your trait, but kind of this change there, you know, getting that shielding, you know, seeing some trade-offs, especially with that level 1 talent. Makes for a little bit of a synergy when you pick those up together, and the accuracy that Fury has, I don't blame him one bit.
I mean, I don't blame him one bit either. Fury, he straight up doesn't miss with any of his combos whatsoever. Nice indomitable use, able to get out of that tether from Cure. Night Camp's going to be picked up for Gale Force Esports, clearing bottom Giants for Team 12 as the slow kind of back and forth musical chairs of Dragonshire unfolds.
There's
Temporal loop.
Yeah, that's going to go. The taunt goes in, but you can see the Iron Skin was used by Justin. Yeah, I just feel like if we were to put a heart rate monitor on Fury, I guarantee it would, like, never change. Like, dude is just, like, cool, calm in every situation. You know, he'll obviously make the big plays, but, like, knowing Fury's personality and the way that he plays, he's so experienced. I guarantee his heart rate just stays the exact same. Like, just all day, every day.
No fear, no emotion.
He's so good.
Cure moving up to B-Kid, able to take back the shrine for itself. Team 12 will end up committing to the Night Camp, but it comes at a cost. And that's going to be that bottom fort. So further the race to 16 for Gale Force Esports, but not enough to be too concerned. The global advantage still sitting on the top half. That's something that ideally Gale Force wants to be abusing. B-Kid now going to start that channel. That's going to force the hand of Team 12 here on this bottom shrine.
Big Dragon's Eye going down, hitting on to Justin, who's now going to hold the point with Goku. As you mentioned, that global is at the top, and nobody is in that top lane. So Team 12 relying on that camp to try and buy them some time, get them an advantage. We'll see if B-Kid opts to make his way into this team fight using that global. You can see pings. Everybody's going down. The vision is there. Chromie has her eyes on this, and they are in a choke.
Such a risky call on the side of Team 12. That brush stock right into that choke there. Nobody able to capitalize. Now we see Buzz using that 13, getting the lockdown. And Tomb going to be used. Indomitable drop. Fury now left on an island. Gets the Ancestral healing. Keeping him up for now. Warden's Cage goes down. A lot of damage onto Buzz. Gets the 3-man taunt. Even shielding, healing himself. But it comes there at the cost of his life. Garrosh goes down. Dragonite picked up in the middle. This is one of those you hate to see it type situations is what I'm going to call it here with this, you know, Junkrat rotation over to mid. It's just sacrificing the member of the Garrosh means that 30 seconds where Team 12 has to essentially not be afraid of that Dragonite whatsoever. Very few times I would say that it's worth walking away from a team fight for a Dragonite.
Just do nothing. I mean, he's sending them on a ride. I mean, we talk about Lily taking adventures. They just walked halfway around this entire map.
Follow the Dragonite. Everybody in a nice queue.
It's pretty easy to spot him.
Am I English? Hello? That was way too a queue, not a line.
Ooh. You've been traveling to Europe
way too much.
In Europe, they call it a queue.
Cure's going in.
Oh, they're going in big time.
That was blessed.
Timeouts there. We're going to see the Tahaka brush stock coming in to try and follow up and be the saviors. Isolation hits onto Justin Dread.
Timeout. Keeping, but the tether back. He's going to keep himself alive. Even the drag over. Goku now gets the Drain Hope onto Fury. sending him down to about 20-30% HP. Riptire out, keeping Mikey Doll alive. He's going to use that 13 and just boost right out. Dragonite phase. I think it achieved about a front wall and a little bit of damage on that fort.
Well, we might have a potential invade here, as we do see that of Gale Force coming in, but remember that Brush Stalker was just used, so the Global is actually in that top lane. You can see the Concussion Mine trying to make any play, try and get some displacement. Unfortunately, not able to do so, but it does buy a little bit of time as Akaface is going to come over. It looks like Team 12 now looking to be the aggressor.
Yeah, and rightly so. If they know that cooldown is still off on the Brush Stock, this is a bit of a bold move. Flip over the Waldo onto Leo. He's going to get the Wraith Walk. A lot of damage now onto Fury, and Sestral does end up landing from Aka. Blessed onto 3. Ring of Frost after that. Condemned back. Locks down the Rhaegar, but Leo ends up going to Ghost form. 1 for 2, 2 for 2 trade now as Gyarados ends up dropping, but Junkrat is also out of here. Big Impact now trying to escape using the Temporal Loop, but I don't think he's going to make it out. He will not. Chromie's feet can't scoop fast enough for this one.
The time trap's going to lock him in there. It's actually going to put him directly in a position to get tongued there as the drag comes out from BK. The Essence keeping him alive.
Bud's even over the wall with that last lurking arm. Not enough to get it there. And so I was going to say is I'm really glad to see Team 12 go for that double invade there, trying to abuse the Brush Stock situation. But honestly, that fight was a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. For how big of an advantage I thought Team 12 had at the start of that. Getting the one-shot, getting Rhaegar cleared pretty quickly into the skirmish. But they held on.
That Condemn that pulled 2 members into that Ring of Frost was money, though.
Yeah.
So we'll see if they can continue to make those plays. It's kind of like the best moment we've seen for Team 12 this fight. They got the pick before the last Dragonite, which was good because it bought them quite a bit of time and neutralized that Dragonite, but they've got to make plays for themselves because they just now took down that bottom fort. That's the first opportunity that they've had all game to really make anything happen.
It's leading to a immediate Dragonite, at least pressure. Fury waiting on the side there. Will be able to threaten out. Team 12 spend this downtime to make sure they get more pressure towards top, which is already lopsided in favor of the Leoric. If that kind of furthers anymore, it'll buy a lot of spare time towards this top lane. B-Kid opens with the drag. The members of Team 12, where do they go with this Night Camp pressure?
Cure's going to find himself a Garrosh in the form of Fury. Now Cure goes in and out. Can't accomplish much. Not a lot of follow-up there. You can see Leo did regain control of that top shrine, so things even here, but Gale Force does have the opportunity of a camp if they do want it. It looks like they don't. They're just going to come up, use Michael Udall on the Junkrat to help clear up this camp while B-Kid reclaims control of that top shrine.
And it's really just going to be that kind of slow dance back and forth here for these two teams. If anybody gains the upper hand over this, it's whoever gets the siege fastest on top, which in theory could be Gale Force right now if teams kind of go toe-to-toe. You would say for Team 12, in argument, they're gaining a keep front wall for the threat of a fort, but the fort and kind of distance to it should be fast enough that you see that make that happen within the reasonable time frame. Doesn't really matter because both teams end up taking more passive, slower route here anyways. Not wanting to kind of take that risk for Gale Force as 20. Not going to be found yet. I'll be honest, I'm very surprised at how kind of back and forth all over this map this game has been, how little team fights we've actually gotten to see so far.
Ooh, Johanna's going to hold point on that bottom side. Rhaegar's down there. Garrosh is not going to make it in time, so good observation to hold that point. Now Team 12 with that level 20. Gale Force, I think, was a little bit hesitant to try and move in without that. They pick it up at the tail end of that. But with us getting at that 17-minute mark at level 20 in, we'll see Team 12 move forward. And I believe that is going to be Dansky on that on Jaina. So they're going to miss that big-time follow-up damage, which means they have a bunch of melee that's going to be pushing in alongside this. I don't know if they're going to get as much value with that being said.
Yeah, it's honestly, it's not very lucky. You lost not only any range damage opportunities, but you also missed the I want to all-in initiate because you know Ring of Frost is pretty much the only must-have. It's the executioner of that combo that they have there between the Entomb, between the Blessed Shield Condemn, or even that Warden's Cage, what we've seen it synergize with. Keep front wall down. Riptire going to be sent out. Only lands onto 2. Like it all trying to poke and prod, throwing out those nades as best he
Dahaka
can.
has to make it back here, Dread. Dahaka's been pushing this entire time, and all of a sudden, Gale Force is now looking at their core falling. This Dragonite still has 40% health.
Yeah, and look at that, buried alive, locking down. Timeout's going to keep Chromie alive for a second longer, 92% on the core and counting, and Central goes down. Maiev going to be first to drop. Leo second, 60%, and there's the Dragonite. Jaina has a lot of damage when she gets out of this, 39. The auto attacks are coming in, and she cannot do 20% herself, can she?
Justin.
Oh my, they did it!
Wow. That is an unexpected ending, to say the least, that Team 12 was simply able to just walk down. What's up, man? How you
It's
doing?
my coffee, not a big
Just
deal.
chilling. They literally just ran it down bot lane. Like now that's actually something that people should take note of, because they pushed forward, casually poked with the fire from the Dragonite. But one thing that you should do if you're on a Dragonite, this is the #1 thing that I think most people make the mistake on. If you don't have that range poke, wait for the minions to come up. Allow yourself to move forward. The towers prioritize that. The minute the minions came into the picture, they went full on, knowing that there was no threat of those structures attacking the heroes.
And there's another major element that's kind of different in this circumstance from some of the other ones, as well as obviously Dahaka staying top was too long. I don't think you can argue other than that at this point in time. But it's think about how many places Brushstock were available to get to that fight if he wanted to. It's actually the closest shrub at that point in time would be right next to Giants, next to that little horseshoe, which is essentially the same distance and time as just backing in general. So from beginning to end, it's not like you're like, oh, but here comes the global. It's not a false ad. You can't pick and choose that.
Yep.
It is going to be a walk in the back line, and you're kind of vulnerable and susceptible. So forces the full-time back as well by that kind of push through the bottom lane. So from every part of that, honestly, on the side of Team 12, I have more praise. You know, this is one of those moments that I would go, I think Team 12 identified a misplay on the opponents and just go, we aren't having that. Way better than, you know, kind of going, you know, because Gale Force, I think it's reasonable to assume we can keep Dahaka a little bit longer. They obviously went like that thought process and some after that point in time, but it was reasonable.
I mean, there was a lot in there that was made outside of that. Obviously, we saw the lurking, or not the lurking arm, but the big stiff arm, the massive shove go in there, isolated. I believe it was Fury in the middle of that. So they made a bunch of plays otherwise. They just gave themselves the opportunity. Warden's Cage was put down to kind of isolate, buy a little bit of time. And then, as you said, when Jaina comes out of there, she's got big time damage, making sure she didn't get locked down. Used the ice block, which you obtained by doing that 15,000 hero damage, to chill targets, and was able to accomplish that by the end of that game. So, you know, there was a lot of things that went into the ending there. But again, the Dahaka stage, just, I mean, I'm looking at the minimap, I'm like, all right, eventually you're going to see him stop moving, because that means he's going to be hearthing. That's when you see the stop animation, it means that he's probably hearthing. You don't even have to click the minimap to check. But he just kept moving. And I'm like,
It's a
like,
new ability. It's that talent where you get the mobile hearth, you know. It's an old school strategy. In case you guys at home, though, wanted to, you know, wonder what B-Kid's build was, or in fact any of the other builds here at the HGC, make sure to check in with our website at playheroes.com/HGC. You can check out Fan's article, which we, you know, about Abathur. He's got a sweet, you know, kind of shield-oriented build there with Mule. And I even kind of gave my thoughts on whether or not Mule versus Needle Spine, so be sure to be able to check that out. But again, we have a little bit of everything that we have here at HGC, not only for North America, also Europe and Korea. You know, me and him, we on the ride over, we're bringing it up on the phone. Always